I'll answer the question. You want answers?
I think I'm entitled.
You want answers?
I want the truth!
You can't handle the truth!
Welcome back to Thinking Critical. This is Wes, and we've been covering here on the channel a lot of the financial upheaval associated with coronavirus, COVID-19, especially in the entertainment industry. Movie theaters, are having a very rough go of it. Disney is having a very hard financial times as well. And today we're going to start discussing the other big company that owns a part of the big two, AT&T. Their first quarter financials finally came out today, and they are not too good. And here to discuss this with me is my good friend Perch. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on. Good topic to talk about.
So they're certainly not being hit quite as hard as Disney is, but they came into coronavirus season with a mountain of debt that dwarfs what Disney has. Even if they're pulling in more revenue right now, they weren't in a great spot to begin with. But we do know and we're going to get into the details of some of the financials. Right off the bat, AT&T management has said that they are going to begin a cost-cutting program, and they're hoping to trim $6 billion in costs from their budget by 2023, and that would stretch across 10 broad areas of opportunity. But they didn't really go into detail about all that. But there was one interesting part there at the end. However, their cost-cutting effort is just one element of AT&T's strategy. Another is to sell off unwanted assets. All right, Perch.
Mm-hmm.
Now that we're in this season and all the things that we've seen, are DC Comics finally an unwanted asset that they're ready to sell off?
No, I think the same logic holds true that we've been talking about. And I think one important detail in these articles is that the announcement of doing cost-cutting measures, that this was going to go into effect, was actually started back in October. Randall Stevenson, who's their CEO, mentioned back last year, pre-coronavirus, that they were going to need to do this. And we knew they were going to do this. I think we talked about they had piled up a mountain of debt to do these acquisitions. They were realigning their business. They knew they needed to get into media and streaming and play in these other places. And to do that, they're going to have to spend money. So they racked up a lot of debt to get there. In the process, they have a lot of duplication of business between, for example, AT&T's Uverse and DirecTV, and just two different business units kind of sitting side by side that duplicate effort. And they have a traditional landline business, and with Cell, they have a lot of pieces to their company that were inefficient. So this was coming always. And in many cases, it's hitting old parts of their business or duplication parts of their business, not new things, like a lot of the Time Warner assets and like DC Comics.
It does appear to do a lot with their, remaining infrastructure as far as like cellular service and things like that as they modernize towards 5G. Mm-hmm. Now, one of the interesting things that we have to keep in consideration is HBO Max. Right. Just like Disney Plus, they are putting a big play in this. They've put a ton of money into it. They have way more content already ready for their launch, which I believe is next month. And DC is a big part of it. We're getting a new season of Doom Patrol. We're getting a Green Lantern show. We're getting a Justice League Dark show. We're getting like Supergirl show. There's a lot of DC content. So DC is a huge part of their strategy for their streaming service, HBO Max, and for their movies moving forward.
Yeah, no, I mean, absolutely. It is, they're at the start of the journey that I think Disney was on with Marvel in many ways. I mean, there was a DCEU, there was a Justice League movie and all the rest, but it hasn't been until the last couple of years that things have really started to click for DC in terms of their movies, Aquaman performing, Wonder Woman kind of before that. And so DC is just at the beginning of this. They're not going to look to make dramatic changes in the comic part of their business, which costs them very little, all things considered, when that is a major part of their IP growth strategy. They're going to go to these other areas, and they're going to cut those first. Now, that doesn't mean that there won't be some redundancy layoffs within DC. I mean, I think there's going to be redundancy layoffs everywhere within AT&T, and frankly, any big company right now. But by and large, if you're a consumer, you would not notice those people going. This redundancy is kind of the very nature of redundancy, is you wouldn't notice the redundancy if it was gone.
All the doom and gloom that's once again starting up about DC, I think DC is going to be fine because really they wouldn't save anything towards the $6 billion worth of financial cuts. And DC is a huge part of their strategy moving forward. But they've got some other issues that their problems are different from Disney. because they're not completely reliant on entertainment. They have all their cellular service. AT&T is a communications company that now owns entertainment as part of that as they roll out towards streaming and things like that we mentioned earlier. Now, they lost revenues because of COVID-19 coronavirus. Now, they're saying WarnerMedia, which is the part where DC resides in, their revenue declined 12% in the first quarter, compared to last year. There was no March Madness this year. That's a huge part of their TNT TBS programming, brings in a lot of advertising revenue like that. No movies coming out. Wonder Woman 1984 was supposed to be ratcheting up towards its premiere, and so far right now Turner and Warner Brothers are advertising and theatrical revenues are where they've really lost a lot of money. For Turner's advertising, they've already plummeted 24%. And then for the Warner Brothers theatrical revenues, they've already dropped 27% in the first quarter. Obviously, it's going to get worse moving forward once we get into the second quarter and we get even more of the stagnation and the effects that we're going to see. But this is the part that troubles me. And I'm shocked that they're doing this. This is from their CEO, Randall Stevenson. We're able to continue investing in critical growth areas like 5G, broadband, and HBO Max while maintaining our dividend commitment and paying down debt. I can't believe they're paying out a dividend in an uncertain time like this with that mountain of debt that they have and limited liquidity on hand.
Yeah, I can't either. And most other companies at this point have suspended dividends and put pauses. You've seen executives decline to take dividend. You've seen a lot of movement in this area. The only thing I can think of here is that part of the lending programs and part of the agreements that were made to get those loans, get that debt built up, is that there was some level of agreement that dividends would continue as part of it, as a way to pay back some of the lender. I don't know. It sticks out very strangely. It doesn't make sense in the context of where the business is at right now and how things are at. So I have to believe there's something else there around an agreement that was made or part of the structure of the debt financing or it's the only thing that makes sense, because any rational company facing these kinds of numbers would cut dividends right now.
Obviously, investors expect a return on investment. They expect to get some money back, but these are different times, and I would be shocked that anyone is just demanding their dividend right now. And you think they would want to keep that in their coffers with everything so uncertain. We don't know when movies are going to come back online.
Right.
We do know that HBO interest in HBO Max is way higher than it is in Peacock, at least according to surveys and things like that. But it's certainly not as high as Disney Plus is, with their enormous growth. And they might even miss all this binging season. Things are going to be, start opening here within the next, 4 to 6 weeks, it looks like. And they might miss that opportunity to get a ton more subscribers.
Yeah, that's the worry. So right now, if you're AT&T, you're seeing the decline in DirecTV, you're seeing decline in other pieces. You do not know when the theater is going to open up again, like you say, and they are trying to hurry HBO Max along. Now, that should, if you're talking DC Comics, put DC a little bit in not a power position, but a more safe position, because that content is so heavily influencing HBO Max. And you could see organizationally that DC might in time kind of float over and become more aligned with HBO Max. That would make some sense, even within WarnerMedia. But at the same time, they're late. In a weird way, they're facing a worse problem than what Disney had. Disney rushed Disney Plus out in some cases because they didn't want to continue to give ground to Amazon Prime and Netflix and Apple TV. And so they maybe moved that along a little faster than they should have because they didn't have the content lined up behind it once it got past Mandalorian. HBO Max took a more measured approach of making sure that they did have the infrastructure in place. It wasn't going to tip over when it started to scale, and that they did have some content lined up. The problem is now they've waited till almost the breaking point where are those customers going to be there? There's almost more scrutiny now on the content they have. Because as you say, people are going outside. They're happy to go out again. They're not going to theaters, so they're still going to look at that entertainment content. But a lot of people's pocketbooks have also been ravaged. So are they going to want to buy a third or a fourth streaming service? What's the value prop there? So HBO's got to get out fast, and it's got to be there's more pressure on it to be a bigger success from day one, which they're going to lean on DC to do. So if you're forecasting out like a year from now, if HBO Max comes out, misses its window, the starter offering isn't that compelling, it doesn't catch on, they're sitting there with kind of Hulu in terms of a service, then you start to look and say, well, maybe DC's power in this is not as strong as it once was. The movie properties can't get out. HBO Max isn't working. Now I think you do start to worry again that property is seen as, not relevant. Today, whether it makes money or loses money, I think it's seen as essential. But that could change.
It's definitely going to lose money. They're giving a ton of subscriptions away to open up, just like Disney did, with Verizon customers. I can't remember the exact company that HBO Max is doing it with, but they're certainly giving away. But they've also got a price tag on them that's higher than every other streaming service out there. It's $15. I believe you can bundle up Disney Plus, Hulu, and ESPN Plus for the same price, or maybe even $1 less. Mm-hmm. So coming in there's a lot of people that, they have Netflix out. They already had Amazon Prime, and now they added on Disney Plus, or maybe even that package. They might have hit their limit on what they're able to add in like another $15 streaming service. Yeah, I don't think the price is right on that one.
No, I don't think the price is. I think the timing is late. I think the price is wrong, and again, it puts all the pressure on the content. It's got to be must-see, shows. And interestingly enough, I think even with that price point, if it had launched in, say, January and had a couple months of good buzz, and then we hit this, then people would have been hooked. They would have been in. But now they're coming in at the tail end of this, well, we hope. And with that price point, I mean, again, that content's just got to fly off the shelves, as they say.
I will give them this. They definitely have some IP that is very readily known, obviously the DC stuff, but they have some cool Looney Tunes. I'm a huge fan of Looney Tunes. They had a trailer come out. That looks really good. I believe they also have some Ellen DeGeneres content on there. Kaylee Cuoco from The Big Bang Theory's got a show. What else they got? Jellystone Park, Yogi Bear and stuff. So they have some things to draw eyes on there. They have content that's for a wide range of audience for adults all the way down to little kids like I have. So it's going to be interesting. But I think you're definitely right. DC plays a big part on that HBO Max strategy moving forward. But it also, DC obviously has a huge part in their theatrical movie strategy moving forward. And I think they're I think John Stankey, who's the chief of WarnerMedia, he kind of got into a little bit of trouble the other day when he was talking about the financial reports. He says we're rethinking our theatrical model looking forward, and looking at ways that they're going to adapt to the market due to the pandemic, which didn't appear to sit well with probably investors and maybe his bosses, because Warner Brothers late Wednesday had to reaffirm their commitment to movies and the cinematic experience moving forward. Warner Brothers CEO Ann Sarnoff came out and actually said, "We are committed to and are excited about releasing Tenet in theaters." That would be the Christopher Nolan film this summer or whenever theaters reopen. We remain supportive of the theatrical experience and our exhibition partners, and are confident that our tentpole titles, including Tenet and Wonder Woman 1984, are exactly the type of films that will have people eager to return to theaters. So it looks like, like Stanky might have talked a little bit out of line, and they had to go in there and do a little bit of fix actions for him.
Yeah, no, I mean, absolutely. I think that there is like I said, like a lot of companies we've talked about, there's a lot of information moving very quickly now. And I think a lot of people are reacting, and that did feel like some cleanup was done. Maybe somebody was letting things out a little bit faster than was intended, or, you got to be sensitive with all these sayings, and information is aging really, really quick right now. Even saying, I hope for this to be over can be seen as a attack on science by some people. So it's going to be a trick for a lot.
DC has a huge part in AT&T's, movie strategy moving forward with Warner Brothers Studios, and they switched up their release schedule just like the MCU did. Of course, they have far less movies. Wonder Woman 1984 is now coming out August 14th, 2020. We've got a release date for the Batman. It got moved back to October 1st, 2021 from the summertime release. We also have The Flash, which I don't even believe it has a script. It's going to be June 3rd, 2022. And then we also have confirmation that Shazam 2 is also coming out in 2022. So that's exciting. We know we have 4, DCEU movies moving forward, but we still haven't heard from Black Adam, which is supposed to star Dwayne Johnson, the biggest action hero in the world.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like they're still continuing to work around his schedule, and maybe they feed him into Shazam 2 in some ways is to tee up his movie. I don't know, but definitely that one feels like the movie that's never going to get done. It's the New Mutants of the DCEU. Is this ever going to actually see the light of day? Let's not forget, Harley Quinn, Birds of Prey 2. Harley Quinn, Birds of Prey, still, I think, the number 6 movie in the country for 2020 right now. So that's definitely got to get a sequel.
Well, we don't see the Suicide Squad date on there, and we know that one was actually already being filmed, I believe.
It was
James Gunn.
It was being filmed being filmed. I think there was, I believe, more than halfway through it.
They're going to need to find a date for that as well. So the DCEU is growing, and it feels like they've learned a lot from their mistakes of the past. Hopefully Black Adam does get on there, and we'll eventually get that new Superman movie, and maybe eventually they'll move and they'll do a Justice League movie correct in the future.
Yeah, it's long past needed, and we can hope. I think that DC, in many ways, on one hand, I think they're sitting in a position where they haven't put all their cards out, they haven't exhausted their audience, they've still got a lot of characters on the shelf that they have yet to even begin to tap, and that's good news for them. I think they have a lot of upward growth potential. On the other hand, they are late, so the pressure's on to deliver. They had some early missteps, and being tied to AT&T's other offerings, HBO Max, other things, their fate is not completely in their hands. They are going to have to hope that some of these other bets work well. If DC delivers great movies and just huge buzz and everything is wonderful, but the rest of HBO Max does not work, either the price point's too high, the other content's not compelling, John Oliver as an anchor is just not doing it for people. Then I think that whether they're successful or not, they're going to suffer because the parent can't bring everyone else up. Whereas Marvel had a little bit of that benefit with Disney. Disney was able to create a brand new category. They could play in it by themselves, and they were very successful there. But they weren't linked to the success of, say, Star Wars or some of the other bets.
Yeah, interesting times for DC Comics. DC Films, being a part of AT&T, WarnerMedia, Warner Brothers Studios. Moving forward, you're going to hear a lot of doom and gloom on the internet saying, AT&T said they're doing some house cleaning. Obviously, they're going to get rid of DC Comics. Not so fast. They're likely not going to get rid of DC Comics. They are a huge, important IP farm for them strategically moving forward. Yeah,
absolutely. No, I think there's no reason to be worried now, unless you're worried about the larger global situation and kind of AT&T as a whole. But this idea of AT&T's got to shed $6 billion. Let's start with DC. That remains ridiculous.
Yes, it does. All right, Perch, I appreciate your time and really appreciate your perspective as well.
Yeah, always happy to talk to you.
If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. I would appreciate it very much. It helps us attract more views for the channel. Subscribe for future commentary, comic book news, and reviews. And don't forget to ring the bell for notifications. If you want to talk comics, movies, and much, much more, you can follow me on Twitter at Wes_from_TC. With that, Salamat Po, and I'm out.